Hello everybody, I'm Colton, and welcome back to another look at a horror web series. I've really enjoyed doing these, and I hope you all have liked them. This video though, I'm going to be talking about one of the OGs in analog horror. The series is Local 58. I know many people have definitely went over it by now, but I'm going into it blind. Of course, each of these analyses I have of these videos, I normally have after watching them, but I'm new to the series and I want to give my own thoughts and takes I actually had from watching it. And I hope y'all care to hear them out. This video will be similarly set up as the others where I talk about each video with my thoughts, and then at the end go over my full theories and ideas. As always, please watch the original videos from Local 58. They deserve every bit of attention they get. Though now, we can jump into the analog horror, Local 58. The first video in the series is, you are on the fastest available route. It starts off immediately by giving us a schedule for tonight's programming. The first thing being at 12:05 a.m. and is called The Midnight Movie. Then at 1:55 a.m., paid programming is coming up. But that one deletes from the screen as we are taken to static. There's a car driving with a GPS assistant telling a car where to drive, and also how long it will mostly take. They then say the key line.
You are on the fastest route.
It's storming pretty heavily, which already adds this eerie feeling to what's going on. It then jumps to where the driver is a lot closer to their destination. Then it leads the car down a path with do not enter signs and an unnamed road. Clearly this is not good at all. It then says turn off your headlights. This assistant just wants us dead for real. I can't get over that. That is insane. The person cuts off their headlights, and then we hear an extremely disturbing noise. The car starts driving away while being chased, but eventually gets caught. The camera comes back with an annihilated car, and there's a whole bunch of fire as well. So the thing about these, a lot of them are pretty short, but sweet. We don't know too much here to really analyze much, but it's a great start. It leaves us with no answers other than clearly that GPS had something up. Also, there's a monster of some sort in that woods. What is it, you may ask? I have no earthly idea, but maybe we'll find out more in the next one. Contingency starts up with the typical programming schedule with end of broadcast day at 3 a.m. It shows an American flag saying their broadcast day has been concluded, but then static appears. It then has a seal pop up that says U.S. Department for the Presentation of American Dignity. So that definitely isn't a weird department. It then says that this message is to be only used in the event of United States complete surrender to insurmountable enemy forces. That cannot be good at all. Also, I'm sorry if I sound like kind of sick. I don't know what it is right now, but my sinuses are kind of acting up. Also, the text 12 Omaha Solemn Certainty indicates to people who know code that this is not a drill, pretty much. Well, that's not disturbing at all. It then tells American citizens they must follow what they are told. We are then read a message, the worst has come to pass. Despite the sacrifices of our citizens and the might of our armed forces, the United States has been forced to surrender to her enemy. They then call on the American people to act to preserve the memory of the U.S. It then goes on about the president himself acting with his family to preserve American spirit, and how he must refuse to yield. They then again cut away, and we're told the same thing, to act despite defeat, and literally tells us there's nothing to fear right before telling us to say goodbye to our world. Like, bro, the holy hell, the jump was insane, but okay. And then it literally tells us the message will continuously repeat until there's no one left to read it. So we know what that means. And then it also says, if there's time to get into the victory position, which is front lawn, face up, and feet together. It even brings up pets and children after, which is horrifying, saying infants and pets are the smallest patriots. It also says the 51st state is not a place. Local 58 then comes back to just casually tell us the message was a hoax and apologize for any confusion. There's even then a Local 58 hoax apology card that appears for a second before being cut out. So this one had a lot to unpack. First off, I don't know who it is that we can trust, and while I think maybe that wasn't the government, it's still crazy that casually a message about everyone needing to give up being broadcasted is just crazy. And it used a lot of the subliminal message tactics that a government entity may use. It was continuous, and in this universe could have led to the loss of many lives. People that thought it was real. Then, there's Local 58 who let it get by. I don't even know quite yet what makes the channel within the series Local 58 so special. Like, why do they have all this weird programming? Or how do they get this creepy government message like that? It's a very odd thing, but hopefully we can learn more. Also, the infants and pets and stuff was horrific, but for some reason that "they are the smallest patriots" line kind of made me chuckle. I know that's bad, but it's just because I keep thinking about like some infant raising an American flag, riding on a dog, and a bald eagle is like flying past them. I don't know. Like, it's just, that's what's appearing in my head. Though anyways, this was a very cool, but also disturbing entry in the series. Weather service is up next, and of course, it starts with the schedule. At 12:15 a.m. is public eye, at 1 a.m. is paid programming, and at 1:30 a.m. is city council minutes. And finally at 2 a.m. is focus on faith. That paid programming one always stays, and I want to know what it is. I just want to know. Anyways, it then goes to another emergency type broadcast, but instead about weather, it cuts out to a cam, but then back to the message. You can hear light radio ramblings in the background, and also we're told not to observe the weather with a naked eye. It then goes back to the schedule again, and we see a quick screen that says 2:15 a.m., blood of the, and then goes to another emergency alert. Like, what the hell? Why are there so many freaking emergency alerts, bro? Oh my god. Anyway, now it says civil danger alert, but it tells us that now we can safely observe the event. That contradiction doesn't sound good. It even tells us to go outside now. I'm pretty scared. That cannot be good. There's then some faint message that says, "Can you read this? Look at the moon." But then something breaks through that says, "Don't look at the moon," in a different style of text. And even more telling us to stay inside and not look at the night sky. Clearly there's some fighting going on. It even says to avoid mirrors. It then cuts away to these eerie bits of text that say, "It's in the light. The moon came in. He found me. Through the mirror, moonlight white, white like eyes, not light but blood. I drown in him. If you are afraid, we will look together." The camera then shows the moon before cutting out. This one gave us a lot more. Something is really up with the moon, and also there's two really conflicting sources on the broadcast trying to tell us what to do. Clearly there's one that's trying to protect us from the moon, and the other wants us to give into it or something. I don't know if Local 58 is just the through point for each of these, or if it is actively trying to help one side. It's just crazy how it shows so many conflicting things. Also, the camera shows the moon, and supposedly that could still be bad, and take the lives of many. I'm leaning more on the side of the group telling us not to look at the moon, but it gives us these conflicting truths. Also, the phrases it tells us are trying to guide us to look at the moon. All of it seems like someone giving up to the moon. Also, I don't know if the split-second text, "blood of the," was just referencing the poem stuff. I'm not really sure, to be honest. Anyways though, I say we try avoiding the moon and keep going through these videos. Station ID is more of like this small interlude in between videos. It has this sequence where it says there's analog horror at 476 megahertz and tells us that we should look away. Though it does also say safety in numbers, which I didn't much understand what it meant. Maybe because there's many receivers like it says, so there's more broadcasts that aren't taken over like Local 58 is. That's about the best I could decipher from it. Like I said, this one is more of an interlude, but it's still a small little snippet worth checking out. Now, back to the typical videos. Show for Children honestly so far was my absolute favorite. I like the little music it starts with in this one, even though I know it slowly is going to degrade, but I'm going to enjoy it while it's here. We then get our handy dandy schedule, and it includes 4:15 a.m. Show for Children, 5 a.m. Community Roundtable, 5:20 a.m. Focus on ... culture, and at 6:05 a.m. Morning Local News. This reminds me so much of waking up in the middle of the night wanting the morning programs to come on so it wasn't night anymore. That's such a weird thing as a kid to worry about, but for some reason I was so disturbed by it sometimes. Like, I liked watching Adult Swim as a kid, but once it got to 3 a.m. and some weird show came on, I would just be hoping for morning to come quicker. And especially with those creepy bumpers, which I think this is kind of based on, I don't know, I was always horrified of it. Anyways though, I'll get back to the video. We continue to Show for Children, where we already have some creepy circus music. The cartoon is called Cadaver and a Great Mistake, and he's a little skeleton guy. He's walking through a graveyard with a creepy Majora's Mask-esque moon staring at him grinning. Cadaver walks up to an open grave. He thinks about his lover before looking down into a grave to see a decayed body. He then runs, as anyone would, before walking with a more disheveled look. He sees an open grave yet again, with a dying bird, before the sequence happens a third time. It kind of looks like Suicide Mouse, the way he's like walking down these paths through here. Though the moon looks at Cadaver now with an extremely odd face, like it's not at all the same. It's really, really, really weird. Our guy keeps walking scared until finding an open, empty grave. He climbs into it before continuing to walk with an even worse look. He finds a grave within the grave as well and lays down in it. The moon creepily comes over and Cadaver is now just bones. That's where it ends, with a "see you next time" message. This one took the cake horror-wise. Like, wow, it was so weird. I like this so much more than jump scares. It's slowly degrading more and more. It's so eerie. And of course the Majora Mask Moon made me so uncomfortable. It grinning at Cadaver while he's seeing all these awful sights until finally he crawls in a grave himself is so horrifying. Clearly this cartoon is trying to get across the idea that the moon can't be escaped. It watches over everyone. Cadaver literally sees everyone losing their life to it and is pushed to give up his own. It's very bleak and disturbing. Not to mention this is pushed toward being for kids. That adds a whole other layer of eeriness to it. The horror of this is so much better than just some loud noises. I can't emphasize just how awesome it is. Not to mention the animation is just good as well. A super solid entry in the series for sure. And if you're not scared of that moon, I don't know what to tell you. Now on to the next one. A Look Back is next up, and it's another very short one. It's just a thank you for watching Local 58 pretty much, until it says, "We send signals to ourselves through their domain. Did we really believe they wouldn't add their own?" It clearly is another sort of interlude thanking us for watching, and I appreciate these little snippet ones. Definitely recaps all the videos we so far went through, and I enjoyed that. Though the one part that is eerie was all of the text. I do have a huge theory about all of this at the end, but I'm gonna save most of it for that. I will say though, remember all that text and what it could have meant. Who are those others that want to add their own signals? It's gonna become so important later. Now we're gonna enter the longest entry in the series, Real Sleep. It starts up as it usually does with a small schedule, though it's at 3 p.m. instead of some AM time slot, and it also, like, which, I don't know, like, that just, like, weirds me out. That's weird. It also has a small screen that pops up and says, "The video cassette tape is intended solely for the personal use of Gerhard Philipp." Who is that? Well, we'll find out, because we don't know right now. It's created by the Thought Research Initiative, or TRI, as it says. Real Sleep says it's an instruction tape, like I said, and section 1 is a myth versus fact. The first statement being, dreaming is necessary for regular sleep function. It says it is a fact and that it is correlational during REM sleep, not causal. But what I noticed was all the statements where it blinks red, even when it says fact, are saying that it's a myth. So I don't understand why that's like conflicting. So that's a little weird. And then next is dreams contain symbolism that can predict the future. You never like when things can predict the future. It says it's a fact, but it blinks red again, and then say that they come from the unconscious mind, and say precognition is a lie and doesn't exist. So like that's what I'm starting to notice here, is the ones that blink red are myths, even though it says fact on the screen. That definitely, isn't weird at all. The next statement is, sleep allows the body and mind to heal and recover. This one it says is a fact, but it does actually glow yellow instead of red. It makes a different noise. It just says the typical 8 hours of sleep is healthy for you, though it says that the benefits are diminished by dreaming. It then says, dreaming is the vestige of a primitive mind. I'll get more into it later, but the weirdest thing was definitely the facts, like just being distinguished between red text and yellow. That was very odd. And before we get in the next section, I'll go ahead and say these people do not want us to dream. Dreaming is bad and horrifying, apparently, and they do not want us to dream. Now we can get into section 2, the Kleitman map. The section says it has been studying the brain to see what pathways activity in the brain use to create dreams. Though it still has text that negatively connotates dreaming, with it saying burdened by dream stimuli. It then shows us electrical brain waves before and after stopping dreaming. And then says, no more dreaming. This is what restful, real sleep looks like. So, I mean, that's where we get the name from. But clearly, there's this bad connotation towards dreaming in this. And this is like what ends up creating my part of my theory later on. Though that's when section 3 comes up and says, inducing your anti-dream. What's really off too is it says close workbooks and watch the screen. Though now we can see why this book said it was meant only for one individual, as text comes up letting us know that the instructional video is personalized to them. It has their Kleitman map from their session. It then has these horrifying visuals of creepy faces popping up on the screen. They're said to induce nightmares or a harder time sleeping, and surprisingly, watching these can actually do that. I just experienced a weird dream last night, and look, I experience a lot of weird dreams, so it could just be that. But I did have a harder time sleeping, and I've heard that the video, like the visuals on these specific videos, watching these can actually do that. So that's kind of horrifying. And I mean, all the ones that they show are supposed to do that, literally each one. And also the words, like you'll see later on, there's another one as well that does that. It's like, I don't know, the lighting of the faces make the brain react very weirdly. It's just the cool details that I feel like the creators put in there, and it made a lot of sense. It wasn't just like some lame gimmick, like they did it for, I mean, it goes with the story, you know what I mean? Then now we go to sequence 2, where it has to do with memory. But it's two faces slowly mixing, and then sequence 3 is called ablation of subconscious. And then there's a creepy sequence that then occurs. So, that was horrifying. Sequence 4 is then to me what's really crazy. It's called acceptance, and says to read each phrase without reading. What's so weird about it is that your brain can read the words in your head, but the text goes away so fast that physically you can't say it in time because you can't retain it. But in your mind, you can say it to yourself. It's so trippy because like you are reading it, but you can't read it aloud. And your brain just picks up on all the words, and it's weird how your brain can actually do that. The details put in this video are so well done. Like oh my god, I love it. And then it says that most patients experience no dreams after watching all this. It also says, do not see a doctor, in like super bold text. So this entry was packed. Whatever agency or group that made this doesn't want us to dream. I don't know if it's the outside forces or if it's the government. I'll get more into it later. It's just, I don't know, it's difficult to really decide. Because if it kind of goes with what I'm going to end up saying, I'll go ahead and say this a little bit. The outside forces would want us to stay up during the night, so maybe not dreaming would make us struggle with sleep. But then also it's saying that it gives us better sleep. So maybe it is the government not wanting us to be up. I don't know. I mean, it could really be either. Not to mention the part like where your brain can read the text, but it changes so fast you can't speak it. It's so cool the way our brain works. And having a series explore that is awesome. Stuff like that is already what makes Local 58 stick out so much to me. All I know is things are getting worse though, and the do not see a doctor text did not make me feel the least bit better. I guess we can find out more as we go through the last couple of entries so far. Up next, the vibe has changed, but the entry is called Skywatching. Our setup looks a lot different, but I kind of like it. It's giving the idea that time is steadily passing with each entry. Our typical schedule comes up with our entry at 12 a.m., another city council meeting at 12:30 a.m., and then finally paid programming at 2 a.m. It opens up with a nicer text that says, Skywatching, before quickly changing to a less fancy font. The camera is pointing at the sky and zooms into Orion's belt and other constellations, until doing exactly what's expected, which is zooming into the moon. Well, that's a great idea, you know? What a swell idea. It even brings up like Pleiades constellation as well, and then whenever it goes to the moon, it says his throne. So, yeah. Before zooming into the moon that has been ravaged by some sort of beast or something. It looks so decrepit and taken over. It's like, oh my god. It steadily gets worse as it shows more and more. There's then some big arrow that points somewhere on the moon or like down to the ground. I'm not quite sure. And then it grows drastically bigger, and the cameraman walks up to the moon, giving his life to it. Before the text says, rejoice in all caps. This entry to me was really cool. It finally answered some questions, but also left us with even more to wonder about. The moon clearly is infested with some sort of creature, and it's getting worse. It even got closer to Earth or bigger or something, I couldn't quite tell. The cameraman literally gives himself to it, as many others do. It's some being that now lives in the moon and wants to take over people's mind before consuming them in some way. Its mere presence changes the people that see it, which is horrifying. Also, I think the constellations were shown is to give the idea that even these figures that could be seen as powerful cannot even deal with whatever is in the moon. That moon ain't right. Definitely horrifying, I can't lie. And now we can go into the final entry so far. Digital transition opens up letting us know that Local 58 will be changing to digital broadcasting at midnight. Of course it's at midnight. They're always at midnight. Also, I think the movie quote, dead men tell tales, could be referencing many things throughout the series. I mean, literally learning from like the cameraman, his camera, right? That's his tale, but he died to the moon. Or Cadaver's cartoon, type deal. Like, all of those, I feel like, relate to that quote. Because they are all, dead figures in the story that end up telling us something that we needed to learn. Though I will say, as now, Local 58 says, goodbye to analog, that kind of goes hard. I mean, seeing as it is probably close, or is probably the biggest analog series I've ever seen. And I mean, granted, I haven't seen that many, but I have seen like a little bit of different ones. And it definitely is kind of like a pioneer in a way, or at least who brought it the most into popularity. It then has it going through the years and even shows mining disaster in a weird cadaver clip we've never seen. And once it becomes digital, of course, things get very creepy and go to static, and then starts to all break down, and text appears that says, unthinking, they move to cut its throat, only to make 1,000 mouths. If he is silenced, we will speak for him. Signs and wonders, no stars above us, just eyes waiting to open. There are other receivers. Then at the end, a big warning pops up about analogs being illegal now. What an absolutely insane entry. There is so much to dissect here, and I think I know what this text was all referencing, but I'll go ahead and now start talking about my overall theories and thoughts. This series off rip was so good, and I can't say that enough. Though now I'll really start getting into things. Firstly, the moon and whatever inhabits it is clearly what is referenced throughout. We broadcast through its domain, did we really believe they wouldn't add their own line, or like wouldn't send their own line? Clearly shows that some universal force is sending these signals, as we use satellites and electrical waves to spread signals. Though now this galactic force is sending theirs to us. The creature that inhabits the moon seems to want over the Earth, or any other civilization in some way. It literally overtakes the constellations that are of higher power figures to sort of prove the point that nothing can stop it. Each broadcast is done through analog, and the moon uses it to its advantage. Also, if we go all the way back to you were on the fastest available route, we can see the moon even messed up the GPS signals and can take people that way as well. Then there's also the government, who I don't know if we should trust them or not. It first seems like they do want us to avoid the moon, but other times they want to change the way our brains work. Like the company who ran the sequences to make someone stop having dreams. That seems really wrong, but at the same time, maybe they're doing it because they think it will protect society from the moon? I'm not really too sure, but that's just kind of my idea. Also, the text showing red even when fact is on the screen seems to show me that there's a conflicting nature of that specific title itself. This conflicting broadcast idea persists through pretty much every entry, though there are also some things I still don't quite get, like the big government message in Contingency. I'm pretty sure it was the moon sending out a message to get people to give into it though, as it tries to make American people give up and give their life to the moon. They even say to go outside, face up, and look at the sky, which is literally what Cadaver does and what anyone does that gives into the moon. Though I don't get why they push the other method to make these people, remove themselves. It kind of makes sense, but as the moon, wouldn't you just want them to all lay outside and give themselves to you? I'm not quite sure, but it most likely is just trying to get that across even more, I guess. Though clearly, parts of society know about the moon and want to prevent people from giving themselves to it. That's why at the end, they transition to digital broadcasting, as they can now try and prevent the outside forces from sending signals. Though it may have just made it angrier and a whole lot stronger. The cartoon was also very creepy and gave off that same message of giving up to the moon. I think it was broadcasted by the moon, or possibly it was a way to scare kids into not doing that. Not 100% sure, but I think it was the moon trying to say that there's nothing you can do and you need to give in. Though at the end of the day, I think clearly the moon has been taken over because of the Skywatching entry, and that's what has caused all of this. It's a creature that wants to use our signals to take over the world. It gets stronger, and now society is trying to take back control from it. We don't know just yet if it actually worked though. As at the end of the digital transition, we got that final message before the analogs being illegal screen comes up. Clearly they want analogs to be illegal to try and prevent this creature from speaking through them, but I don't know if it worked. I'm sorry if some of this just seemed like rambling, or I still wasn't 100% sure on something. I really tried to decipher what I could, but some things in this series are just really good at keeping mystery in them. As you know, I always appreciate if you guys give me thoughts and theories of your own in the comments. Overall, Local 58 is a massive success in the analog horror genre. It does such a great job at providing questions and trickling answers in there to keep you along. And it truly uses the analog feel to its advantage. It doesn't just slap it on as a way to make it more creepy or like some lame gimmick. It gets the mystery across and fits into the story, and it builds upon it. And I feel like that's what some analog horrors that I have seen do miss. There are ones like White Stag Education that did a good job in my opinion, and added to, the time period or whatever, that is trying to build around to make it better. But then you have some that I won't name that try to use it and they do it completely wrong and it doesn't add much of anything, and that I find lame. But if somebody needs an example to go by, this is one. It does a great job, and I think it kind of ended its own usage of analog to end that kind of path it was in. It felt like it did enough with it, and now it did the digital transition, you know what I mean? And that I feel like was the right thing to do. I love this series, and again, I hope y'all check it out for yourselves on the Local 58 YouTube channel. I promise you, it's so much better if you hear it directly, you watch it directly. I always put it in the description, no matter what. And if you enjoyed this one, like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay safe